Hello, everyone. Good morning and welcome to another live stream brought to you by Agile Genesis. We've got we got Marcelo Lopez in the house wearing a cool hat. Marcelo, happy Martin Luther King Day. There's a lot going on today. Inauguration Day, Martin Luther King, the college championship. Go fighting Irish. Today's a packed day, so we decided to add one more thing to it. That's us getting on camera and just talking about the latest and greatest when it comes to the Agile community and the Agile industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Buenos dias, señor. How are you?
Buenos dias. I'm doing all right. Not Matthew McConaughey. All right. But pretty good. But pretty good. Yeah. It's a packed day. It's a big day. Go fighting Irish. Yeah. Gee, I'm saying this with a little bit of trepidation because I'm a big Hurricanes fan. So. But when you can't vote, you can't go with the one you love. You got to go with the one you got. So
and let's give the love to Ohio too, right? We got some people from Ohio, a lot of people from Ohio, in fact. So giving Ohio State some love as well. It's going to be a great match. I'm really looking forward.
Absolutely.
It's football week, right? Because last night my Bills, we did win. We get a shot, so we're moving forward. It's good stuff ahead for football.
Absolutely. And on that note of positivity, it's amazing. It's already 20 days into 2025, and there's been a lot of negativity. I'm like, whoa, folks! I thought we were starting fresh here. Okay, I mean, we had some folks that you and I both connected with it, and we're like, hey, can we try for 2025 to not be so controversial? And to that person, you know who you are. I tried. We really tried.
Okay? So it's funny you say that. I'm going to connect at a personal level. It's semi-serious. I don't want to damper. But I did make a resolution this year, and I had a single resolution, just one. I don't want to overwhelm it with different things that I might forget throughout the year. My single resolution is to remain 100% positive in all scenarios. That's it. Positivity is my commitment for 2025. No matter what, and that's at the people level, that's at the work level, that's at the personal, children, family, all things positive always generate positivity, right? Neurons that fire together grow together. So remaining positive, and not in a hocus pocus way through, I'm just going to be a positive dude, but really about suppressing those thoughts that sneak in, those negative thoughts that are problems that haven't happened and probably will never happen and we worry about. So I'm focused on remaining on the positive side of things, always reflecting positive on people, reflecting positive on work, reflecting positive on my activities and things. That's just me. I don't know how I ended up on that soliloquy, but
no. I totally get you. I totally get you, and I'll say I'm like 90% there with you because my inner skeptics always gotta quoting Gorbachev, trust but verify.
Oh, don't get me wrong. This is not to say I am 100% positive. It is I have a goal of being 100% positive.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, people who know me personally know that 2024 was not kind to me personally, not just necessarily professionally, but personally. It posed some serious challenges, and I learned a lot from it, and using it for positive reinforcement going forward into 2025. There's lots of challenges out there for folks as well, and so what they say, that those that don't remember the past are doomed to or condemned to repeat it. Well, using all that 2024 as a learning experience, which we should every year, but using it specifically because of the challenges it posed for me. My resolution is to use that to not just make 2025 a better year, okay, in a how could I say this, in a proactive sense, to generate that to the people around me. In other words, to hey, we're all coming together. Like the name of the podcast. It's Agile all hands together. We've got to move this forward. Okay.
Yeah, so we're starting this new theme that we're going to be running for folks, and that's really the all hands conversations about what transpired in the last conversation, right? In the agile industry, for practitioners, for those using it, for those looking to use it, we want to talk about events that might be coming up. We talk about fairs that are impacting the agile community and business in general, right? Or maybe even you're on a personal agile journey as well, and it's not related to any particular industry or job, but how you want to grow as an agilist. So the things that are current, right? So that's what the agile all hands, and in this case, it's about navigating the shifting sands, talking about things that happen that might shift the direction that the industry or the people are moving in. And we had a big one in recent days. We had tell us about that one, Marcelo. I know we talked about extensively what that could mean for the agile industry, and what is it?
Yeah, well, I'm chuckling because I my first reaction would be like, oh, that. Okay. I don't think at this point it should be a surprise to anyone that the PMI and the Agile Alliance have joined forces. I refrain from using the typical air quotes around that because we're still kind of really trying to find out what that actually means. Presumably, there's going to be some meetings coming up. One that happened last week online in Europe, so it wasn't conducive to ours for us here in North America to watch. But presumably, there's going to be another one where they will come out and explain more of themselves as to why both entities chose to join forces, if you will, in some strategic way. There was a lot of polarized reaction to that. I mean, I confess myself on the side of the skeptics. Okay, part of that is because of my experience in 20 plus years in the agile community, and 40 years in software development. So after a while, you kind of develop a bit of a skeptical mindset around it. That doesn't mean we can't be forward thinking and positive thinking that the two of them together will bring something forward of use to both communities. We would definitely be hopeful of that. Okay. But I think we should not divest ourselves of any critical thinking of things that have come around, because the landscape has changed, Ernesto. Okay, the Agile Alliance was formed to help grow the Agile community. Its principal vehicle for that was to provide a meeting place, okay, a watering hole, if you will, for Agilists when there wasn't one. Okay, i.e., the National Agile Conference that it would run every year. Okay, this is over 20 years ago now. Okay, and now in the intervening time, the landscape has changed, right? There's things like what we're using now to meet virtually online in an instant in a gathering place. Yes, we're not physically together, but we can simulate that together to some degree. And as the Agile community, quote unquote, did grow, there's lots of different events more local to where people are. There's probably 50, 60 different conferences going on yearly all over the planet. Okay. And therefore, the need for one centralized conference, okay, I like to say it this way, became less and less attractive, because if you can attend a conference more local to you for a few $100s, okay, where you don't have to necessarily spend to travel, to lodge yourself, and so on and so forth, some people who may not have the money are going to choose those more local events. Okay, the landscape just changed. Okay, that's not to say there wasn't value in the conference itself on a yearly basis, but the landscape itself changed.
So it's interesting because a lot of thoughts as you say that. First, let me volunteer to be the translation layer here for those that might not
Okay.
be familiar with the institutions and the history. So you mentioned the Agile Alliance. That's not to be confused with the Scrum Alliance. A lot of people confuse the two because of the word alliance. This is the Agile Alliance. It's a non-for-profit organization that was created back in 2001. It has approximately about 90,000 members. It's a very large organization, and it's agnostic to frameworks. That hence, it's agile. It's not just Scrum. It combines all of the things relating to agile. And their biggest event was or is the Agile. What's the name of the conference in Orlando? I don't want to get it wrong.
It's just called Agile.
It's just called Agile. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Agile,
But yeah, okay.
Agile,
So
and then the year.
the Agile conference in Orlando, it's one of the most popular events. It's well attended and it's well rounded, right? PMI, for those of you that are not familiar, that's the Project Management Institute. They boast about somewhere in the neighborhood of 700,000 members worldwide. It was established back in the 60s, I think somewhere along in the 61, somewhere around there. And the PMI has been 69. Correcting myself. PMI has been traditionally representing the traditional project management, waterfall. It was very, very strong for a while, for decades, and then Agile came along and sort of started eating at that because of all of the benefits we usually talk about in these sessions. And now PMI has, or for a few years now, PMI has been recognizing the value of Agile and adding content, adding certifications, and they acquired other Agile bodies in order to absorb some of that material and be more Agile oriented in their project management offerings, right?
Yeah.
So we're starting to see the more aggressive posture, not in a bad way, from PMI to really make that commitment toward agility. And what you described was this partnership that was formed in, I think the official formation of that was actually December 31st. But in the last 30 days, let's say, that there is now a partnership between the Agile Alliance and PMI. That was the long version of what you compressed for those that are familiar with the background, but I thought it was important to set the stage.
Right. As I understand it, what information has, I'll say, filtered out is the PMI is providing funding to pay for the staff of the Agile Alliance, but the Agile Alliance remains independent, if you will. There may be questions around that as to what that actually means, but we'll go with it, that they're remaining independent, okay, to continue to promote their conference as they have before, and as I understand it, other things to come, which they have not really put out publicly. So it would all be strictly speculation as to what else is to come through the Agile Alliance. Yeah, the thing is that as you mentioned. There have been several different iterations through the PMI to introduce agile ways of work or agile practices into the practice of project management. Okay, one of those was the PMI ACP credential. Later, the acquisition of disciplined agile and flex and things like that, and credentialing through those routes. The challenge most recently is is around recognizing the value or the applicability of of those credentials per se. The PMP by and large remains the cornerstone of the Project Management Institute. It's the thing. I'm not going to say it's the gold standard. It is just the standard for them.
In full disclosure, I am PMP certified.
Mm.
So I understand and have benefited significantly from the PMI body of knowledge. And as well as, of course, I'm certified in practice Agile in large. So I have a unique position, or I am in a unique position to understand both sides and kind of get where PMI is coming from, right? This idea of being able to take real, proven, well-established organizations and partner with them to have a guide into providing quality content for the project management community at large.
Yep.
So I think we could take this sort of a Hannity and Combs type of approach here. For those of you that go, Marcelo and I were talking about older content before, where we might have opposing visions, and I'm not sure, opposing opinions about this. Let's talk about what this means, right? We now set the stage for the fact that this happened, and now you understand, the viewers understand what those organizations are, right? The potential state of that agreement, because we don't know what's going on. Neither Marcelo nor I are representing either organization or work for either organization. This is an outsider's view into what this means and what it could mean for the Agile community. So we've got two views, right? We've got the idea that for PMI members, this is going to enhance access for the amount of material that relates to Agile, the tools, the resources, right? For Agile Alliance members, it means that there's now a bigger pot, right? There's now the ability to amplify the charter of agility into everyday project management, which I think is wonderful, right? What is the impact of that, right? Well, potentially you got a blending now of traditional project management with Agile, something that has for a very, very long time been two separate corners, two separate groups, but they don't have to be, right?
Yeah. My, and again, I'm keeping the skeptic hat on for the moment. My challenge there for myself is to see how that blending takes place, how that continues to go forward. Okay. And I'll approach the question this way, because it's a little thorny. Okay. And by thorny, I mean it can polarize people, and that's not something I'm looking to do, especially in this conversation. Okay, but it needs to be said, and that is that one of the things that's behind the idea of what is Agile about is to continually pursue finding better ways of doing work, up to and including eliminating, removing things that we have long standing relied on as the practices that we want to apply. Okay. One of the challenges that organizations have is in locking in and applying the bias around the phrase best practices. One of the things that's I guess a foundational idea behind being Agile or pursuing agility to be more adaptive is that best practices are very temporal. They might be applicable today and they might be very, very unsuited tomorrow. Okay. And we have to remain open to letting go of that past. And that unfortunately is challenging to organizations. Okay. And it remains a challenge. Okay, because in past versions of the PM body of knowledge, the phrases around we apply best practices are very ingrained into a vast number of PMPs.
Yeah, there's definitely, for sure, a lot of material that now needs to be addressed in terms of how these come together. But I think it's an exciting time. I
Oh,
think we're going from this concept of, agile is not changing.
mhm,
Agile is not changing, but the view, the
mhm.
description, the application, and the venues where agile is being addressed are changing. They are amplifying. That means, we're going, this, by the way, has happened since the beginning of times, right? It is that bell curve of the TAM, the technology adoption maturity bill, has been going on for quite a while. This is not new, folks, right?
Mhm.
Agile has gone from its innovator stage, which started back in the mid I don't know.
They call them the Audis, the double O's, the
Yeah,
Audi.
exactly.
I don't
I
like
was
that.
actually thinking mid '90s, right? Because a lot of this was happening. The Agile Manifesto ratified it in 2001, but this
Yeah,
was already happening, right? The real early
it,
adopters
it
were
was
out there trying to experiment with this stuff,
the
right?
idea. Yeah, the ideas were confined to what I'll call a nascent community. Okay, even in the software development community, it was still somewhat small, if you will.
Tiny,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
And then it grew. It went into an early adopter stage,
Mhm.
right? Where you went from that micro set of folks to larger. Usually that's about 13% of the overall market as it works out over time. And then that grows into an early majority, right? We saw that where organizations were really creating these competitive advantages over their competition by far, right? The startups were eating big people's lunches. The Spotify's were taking on the Apples of the world because they were being more agile, right? That was sort of an early adopter stage. That
Yeah.
then, as folks saw those advantages, they began to join in with the late majority, which is a massive number, right? Usually being about 35% as well. And
You see,
those were the folks that were coming in
yeah,
droves, and they were just, we want agile, we want agile. Why? Well, because they had it, and they
right.
did great, so we want it,
So
right?
that brings up a very interesting topic that people sometimes talk about is, well, who is really agile? And then people will get testy and say, well, who are you to decide? And like, well, I'm not deciding, but the market is deciding whether you are or aren't. Because part of what we see now in this a later stage of the of adoption curve, if you want to call it that, is the way that companies are adopting it is they're adopting the label, they're not adopting the ideas, they're not adopting the approaches to it, they're not really trying different things, whether it's that you're trying to use scrum around your product development practices, or whether you're applying full flow and theory of constraints and kanban, if you will. It's they're they're piecemealing things and calling it, oh, we are agile. Okay, however, and I know that this will probably also get a little prickly for some of the people watching right now. They'll brandish about this term called hybrid agile. Okay, and I know that I'm going to upset some friends, but I'm going to say it this way: hashtag no such thing as hybrid agility, no such thing as hybrid agile. Okay, the fact is that if you have to do anything big up front, okay, you're undertaking risk. And to use the label of waterfall, which I don't like to use either, but I'll use it for the moment. Okay, you're still waterfallish. Okay, if you're really going to be iterative, incremental, regardless of what sort of approach you're taking, all right, and you're going to take we're going to satisfy the customer early, often and regularly, incrementally, regardless of what approach we take to actually doing that delivery. Okay, you can't use that big design upfront thinking. You can't really use that big budgeting all upfront thinking that has been applied to traditional project management. Why? Because you're applying ideas from a different domain. I'm going to throw in Kinevin in there now that we're talking about this. Okay, you're throwing things from a different domain into a somewhat other domain. You're taking ideas from the simple and complicated domain into a complex domain.
All very valid. All very valid. I'm going to be an advocate for the other side. And
Please.
I would say that, that is a very binary view. And I understand it. And to a large extent, I agree, right? If you're trying to be agile, it's sort of like you almost have to be a purist to be agile. But if you're on an agile journey, which 99% of us are on a journey to being agile, that in itself is a significant improvement, right? So I would say, when we talk about being on an agile journey, there's a reason why we choose that word.
Yeah.
I just a trip. A trip is predictable. A
Right.
trip is something that has a schedule. A trip is something that we usually know the outcome of it before we started.
Right.
A journey is an adventure. A journey has a lot of discoveries along the way. Our journey is going to make us grow in ways that we don't know yet how that is going to end up. So an agile journey is a very good description of what becoming agile is. And it's okay if you never become agile. Many of us will never. It's the journey itself that is going to continue to improve how you work. So I think a merger of these two approaches is a beautiful journey that is going to take people from working in either side in a very traditional format to a more flexible one, or in a loosely chaotic way, perhaps because it doesn't have the structure of an enterprise, into a more structured way, sort of meeting halfway.
Yeah. My thoughts around that, I'm not to say call it concerns, but my thoughts around that are when we forget that it is that. Okay. Consider that we want to try it. Okay. And we don't whole hog change. We don't kaikaku. We don't do a big change, but we want to do it little pieces. Okay, great. We're going to maintain our traditionally established or our current way of work in parts of our business. Okay, whatever those happen to be. And we're going to try this thing called agility here in this particular corner. That's great. Okay, my concern, and this is something that and I'm sure you've encountered it as well, but I've encountered it quite frequently, is that they do it, they try it. Okay, they're seeing some successes. Okay, small wins, big wins, whatever. Okay, but they don't use anything that they've learned to consider if and how they could apply it in other places. And yet, by and large, the organization remains applying the same sort of thinking they were before. And yet, when they come out publicly, they say, we're agile.
Yeah, for sure. Look, there's no question that you leave a lot on the table by adopting a portion of what could benefit you. That, by definition, is, or just a logical argument that you understand that you're biting on what you could chew, and there lies the real value in being true to how much you can accomplish. Right, knowing that you're going to do more in the future, but you're going to focus on this. Right. Look, I'm going to add to this with a quantifiable aspect. We're running a poll right now that is about the challenges that agile leaders have when scaling agile. And in fact, if Carlos is able to put that post up there, folks can chime in and offer their opinion. And so far, the number one challenge that organizations face is in structuring teams for success. The second one, is where it gets interesting, is cutting through the agile buzz. Leaders are challenged by the amount of noise that is out there. Cutting through all of that and getting to the chase of what they need in order to succeed as their primary goal, and one of the things they're having challenged around. So I think it's on us to be very, very clear about what they can implement, and for us to guide and coach organizations in terms of what is achievable for them. Let's cut some of that out so that we can focus on the things that make a difference for them today. Right?
Yeah. I mean, and that is a thing. It's like if we are going to try to pursue these ideas that are discussed inside, that thing that we call the Agile Manifesto. Okay, let's do so with a thought that if we're doing it, we're actually doing it for the reasons that they were intended, to satisfy the customer, that we're not doing it for show. Okay, because that's the other thing, and that I'm hopeful for 2025, and this is going to be a challenge that I'm putting out there to everybody. And when we're done with this recording, I will push it to the rest of people who follow me. And this is the challenge for 2025, Ernesto. Okay? For 2025 especially, let us let go of Agile for the show of it. Not Agile in name only, Agile for the show of it. Okay? If we're actually going to try this, let's actually try this.
And I love that, Marcelo. I would argue that that's already happening. Right. And what's happening is actually having a negative impact in the Agile industry. We're talking about the shifting sands, and some of the shifts that I am experiencing and seeing and talking more about our colleagues or to our colleagues about is this idea that Agile is now integrated into everyday language. And the word Agile, it's being removed from how we are working because it's implied that we are working in small teams. It's implied that we are meeting every day for a period of time to sync up. It's implied, in other words, all of those practices that we call Agile are just in some places becoming part of how we work. So it doesn't have a name, it's just how we work. So this idea of, hey, we're not even saying we're Agile, it's just how we work. That shift is happening as we speak. And I think that's a massive positive step in the Agile evolution. And a lot of folks are perceiving that to be a negative thing because they feel left out. We're not calling it Agile. Where's the Agile coach? Who cares what that role name is, as long as you're helping that organization achieve their goal. If you're working with the leadership to get alignment, if you're working with the PMO to set up a structure that aligns around value through a value stream, and if you're working with a team to get them to be more productive and collaborative, doesn't matter what word you're using to describe that. If you're using the principles that achieve that, you're there.
Yeah. I mean, if we go back and we look at the idea of where the word Agile was applied to all this stuff, it came from a book about manufacturing and supply chain management. Okay. They weren't thinking about what we're calling Agile as Agile. They were just calling it, hey, this is a better way of doing business. That's it. That's it. They weren't using the term. They weren't nounifying. They weren't nounifying the word Agile. Okay. So as far as all those folks were concerned, all this stuff was just a better way of doing business. And
not just doing business, of having mental health even.
Yeah. If we can go back to, hey, let's have a better way of doing business, then great.
I remember, Marcelo, you told me you're going to the barber, and I teased you that you need to tip extra right after they're done working with you today. But I these white hairs are not painted on. We go back a while, and I've been in the technology industry for quite a while, and there was a time when the folks programming, the call center, the IT folks, the infrastructure, the networking. We were in a dark room, in fact, to give you a mental picture, right? It was this dingy room somewhere in a big Wall Street corporate building that all kinds of fancy stuff, but we were sort of this outcasts that sat in the corner. And in fact, there was a role to translate from English to English, from the business to the people doing the work, because the IT folks were sort of considered this subclass that needed to communicate in a particular language. Business people just couldn't communicate with them. Agile came as a cry for mental health for these people to come out of that room and integrate into society.
I'm just happy we have access to better coffee these days. That's all. Because back then it was all that one coffee pot. People, the other guy would forget to make the new coffee, and so sometimes the bottom of that coffee pot would get black, and so you'd have to clean it. So I'm just glad we have better coffee these days. But you're absolutely right. If we remembered that all this stuff that we call agile, whether we use the adjective form or the newfangled noun form, if we would just keep in mind that this was about people talking to each other about the things that mattered, okay, having open and honest conversations, being transparent about those particular conversations, okay, and I'll just say it this way, establishing actual trust. And what I mean by actual trust is trust where you don't have a hidden agenda, where agendas can be out in the open, okay? Where agendas can be out in the open. It doesn't mean that I may need to give my ideas a backseat to your ideas, okay, or vice versa, right? Okay, the idea is that we all have something to agree and align to. And given whatever our ideas are, that marketplace of ideas is all to be able to satisfy our customer better, to help them satisfy their customer better when we're talking about the work that you and I do, that you and I have done together.
And what's happened through time is we cut out the middleman, right? We cut out that translator, and now we're doing it directly. We're connecting the people doing the work with the people who need this work as value. By the way, Marcelo, great, just a fun thing. We have Dima on, and she just sent out a shout out, and I wanted to.
It's great. It's
going back in time. Dima, we miss you. Love you. Yeah. Thank you for being here.
Appreciate that. Yeah, we go back with her as well. So it's nice to hear from folks that know you back in the day, as the kids say.
Yeah.
These days, I think that 2025 will still have some challenges for us, though, Ernesto. I'm gonna poke at the artificial 800-pound gorilla in the room. I'm talking about AI.
That is a conversation in itself that we can have not just 1, 2, 3 different live sessions around.
And we should.
I would love to have it. I do think, I'll say, it's one of the main drivers, one of the main forces that is driving this fast change. Yeah. What we've seen as far as industry changes in Agile, I think, are influenced by the massive force that AI is putting in businesses, right? Whether it's for project management, whether it's for productivity, whether it's for data insights, whether it's for low-level knowledge, all of that is aided with the help of AI today. Something that were low-hanging fruits in an agile world, in the agile industry. So folks that were operating in that level of providing those low-hanging fruits are now looking around, going, "Hey, what do I do now? And what's happening? Why aren't people coming to me or talking to me?" And that's AI, right? It's the first shift to that has influence on the knowledge worker. For decades, the knowledge worker has been sitting pretty, and people have been coming to them because the industry workers were sort of the grunt work. Well, now we've got an entire force that could do the white. The knowledge worker grunt, low-level work, and that's called AI, and that's having a major influence. So we should definitely have more sessions to peel that onion. But
Oh yeah.
on it, Marcelo, please.
I'm just setting the stage because there is so much to talk about that. You know, people are obviously worried about their work these days. You know, certain announcements have been put out by folks like Meta and stuff about what they're doing, about from Salesforce and what they're doing. Um, I I think that, as you said, there's a lot longer conversation to do there. Um, but I ask folks, don't be all doom and gloom.
Yeah, well, look, we talked about the evolution of Agile in the industry, and to wrap that up in a statement, I think Agile is going from being a scalpel tool to being a machete, right? It's now going to address the larger issues instead of being this tool that we use to adjust a team performance. To integrate itself means it's now becoming a sword. It's not just a small tool that cuts. And we're not a small industry anymore. We are a large industry playing in the big ring with the big folks. AI is a tool that helps with how that big industry plays a role. And we need to become more efficient at using AI. The idea of AI shaming, that's a new term maybe, I don't know. But the idea that we need to stop AI shaming and embrace it. Everything that is new, everything that is unknown, usually faces a period of uncertainty, and people mock it or discriminate it or don't look in that direction until they become laggers and are out of it. As individuals in the area of improving organizational performance at the team level, at the leadership level, at the structure level, we need to be efficacy in AI as a tool, as an assistant, something that helps others and can help us.
I look at it as and again, some people will take this negative, but you know what? This is just how we in our society works, and society in general work, because it's work that way. There are cycles to things. Okay, people who are maybe listening to us may or may not remember this thing called the .com boom of the 1990s. Okay, it literally was the wild west. You could get funding if you had a website. Boom. It doesn't matter what you were selling. You could be selling pet rocks. You could get funding. Okay. Similar to what's going on today. You have AI products, or you have an AI service. You have something that has the word has the suffix .ai after it. Chances are you're going to get some money from some seed investor at some point or another. The scary part, this is the part that will make some people shudder, is I think at some point, maybe 2025 might be it, maybe early 2026, we're going to have to get in touch with ourselves. I hate to say this. Get in touch with our own inner reality, and there'll be a little bit of a bust. Okay? There'll be a little bit of a bust, and organizations will take a deep breath and actually stop and say, okay, we're getting over ourselves and the hype. What can we actually use some of this stuff for productively? What is actually productive for us to use this stuff for?
For sure, we're in the innovator cycle of that technology adoption curve, and early adopters are starting to show a little bit of time. Perhaps you and I are a little bit of that, although I know you've dealt with some AI in the past. I certainly did decades ago when it was in a very, very rough state. Today, it's a lot more structured. You can use tools. You can use different things.
So they call them expert systems.
Yeah, that's right. We call that's
yes. Man. I was like,
yes. Okay. So the idea that there will be an inspect and adapt aspect about this is I think coming, and what you're talking about. I do think at the same time it is important that we begin to leverage this powerful tool, this powerful technology that's available to us. The amount of people I talk to that don't know how to approach the overwhelming amount of AI-based information and resources that are available to them, it's actually alarming. We need to start educating people on how to use it more effectively.
Yeah. So here's here's a little freebie for people out there when they start to think of well, what could I do? Okay, it comes back to a particular skill that that I'll say it this way, we could benefit from more, and I mean personally, professionally. What I'm talking about, Ernesto, is the habit of critical thinking. The habit of critical thinking. A while back, we had a little session where some folks wanted to find out about critical thinking, the ideas of red teaming and purple teaming and stuff like that. But at the core of it, when you practice thinking about things critically, logically, okay, you will be equipping yourself with the skill of being better able to not only understand what you could use an AI, a GPT for, okay, but how you could logically interact with it, okay. Yes, a lot of work has been put forth to be able to create better reasoning and interacting GPTs, AIs, if you will. Okay. But recently, I actually put to both ChatGPT and to Claude, the two main known ones, and I said, are you actually reasoning through things that are asked of you, or are you just running some fancy statistics? And I had a conversation with both of these AIs, if you will, for about 15, 20 minutes, where the AI, I'll say it this way, the respondent part of it kind of skirted around the conversation as to whether it was actually reasoning or whether it was using some statistical models behind it. Okay. And it was, in effect, using those statistical models to come up with a reasonable response. Okay. I may publish an article on LinkedIn about that particular conversation. I think people will find it interesting when I do.
I think we have so much material as you're mentioning some of these things. So many thoughts are coming to mind. There's the ethical part, there's the echo chamber, there's the need to find a productive, right fit tool for the job. Let's do this. Let's pause here and let's come back and commit to coming back for listeners to another session in the future where we peel that onion even further. I think it'll be a very interesting topic.
Sooner than later.
All right. Excellent. So, Marcelo, once again, thank you. Thank you. Great insight. I love your honesty. I love how we this is non-scripted, folks. This is Marcelo giving it to you from his stream of consciousness and myself as well. And we hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you soon again.
Absolutely. Yeah. Teleprompter free.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Dima,